The sun was starting to sink behind the tall buildings downtown. Shadows stretched across the sidewalk where people hurried past, holding coffee cups and shopping bags. Right outside a busy cafe sat a man on the curb, legs crossed, a cardboard sign resting in his lap. His clothes were torn and dusty, his beard long and wild. The sign read, "Homeless veteran. Anything helps. God bless." Most people ignored him. Some looked away. A few dropped coins or small bills into a dented coffee can beside him. Then came the sound of boots. Quick, firm steps. Officer Carter strolled toward the man, tall and proud in his crisp uniform. He couldn't have been more than 30. His hair was neat, his sunglasses shiny, and a smirk played on his face. Like he already knew something the rest of the world didn't. He stopped in front of the man, looked down and laughed. "A war hero," he said loudly, pointing at the sign. "You? Please. What did you fight for? A sandwich?" People nearby turned their heads. A man at the cafe window frowned. A teenage girl holding an iced latte slowed her step. Someone across the street started recording on their phone. The homeless man didn't answer. He looked up at the officer with calm eyes, tired, but not weak. His hands rested still on his knees. Officer Carter took a step closer and waved his hand at the crowd like he was putting on a show. "Come on, folks, don't fall for this act. Bet he's never even held a real job." The young woman sitting near the cafe window put down her drink and stared, her face unreadable. Something about this didn't feel right, not at all. Before the sign, before the sidewalk, James had a name and a purpose. He was Sergeant James Holloway, United States Army. 12 years of service, 3 tours overseas, 1 Purple Heart. Years ago, James stood tall in the middle of a hot desert, dressed in heavy gear, helping his squad through one of the worst days of their lives. A bomb had gone off near the roadside, flipping their Humvee like a toy. He'd pulled 2 soldiers from the wreck before the fire caught hold. His left leg never fully healed after that day, but the pain never stopped him. He came home with a limp and a head full of memories. The cheers at the airport were nice, but they didn't last. Soon the calls from the army stopped. So did the visits from old friends. Nightmares came instead. Sleep was hard. Job interviews were harder. Every time someone saw the way he walked, or the way his hands shook, the doors closed before they even opened. He tried everything: construction, security, even a warehouse job. But nothing stuck. His back gave out, his mind gave out. And then, one cold winter, his apartment did too. Rent was late. The landlord didn't care about medals or memories. So James packed a small bag, took his army jacket, and left. He never begged, not once. But he started holding a sign. It wasn't just a cry for help. It was a reminder to people walking by. He existed. He mattered. He still had a story. Inside the lining of his coat, sewn carefully by hand, was a single silver star pin. He never wore it, but he carried it. A small, quiet symbol of who he used to be, and maybe who he still was. And now he sat on a cold sidewalk, while a young officer laughed in his face. But James didn't move. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. Because deep down, he knew something Officer Carter didn't. Sometimes the strongest men are the ones who say nothing at all. The officer's voice grew louder. "You know, sitting here like this, it's illegal loitering. You want to spend the night in a cell, tough guy?" James didn't flinch. He looked up slowly, but still said nothing. His hand gently touched the edge of the cardboard sign, as if to steady it. A woman walking past with grocery bags paused. She squinted at the officer, then at James. A man on a nearby bench took out his phone. He wasn't the only one. More people. I started recording. Officer Carter didn't seem to notice, or didn't care. He leaned down and jabbed a finger at James's chest. You're scamming people. You don't deserve their money or their pity. James finally spoke. His voice was low and steady. I earned my place here, just like I earned that medal. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not real. The officer laughed again, colder this time. Yeah, let's see this medal of yours. Without warning, Carter reached out and tugged at James's coat. The old fabric tore slightly near the pocket. A small object slipped out and hit the sidewalk with a soft clink. A silver star. The crowd gasped. The woman with the grocery bags dropped one. Eggs rolling onto the concrete. A teenage boy in a hoodie stepped closer, staring at the medal like it was made of fire. An older man near the cafe pushed himself to his feet. Eyes narrowed. That's a silver star, he said, his voice tight. That's no joke. You even know what that means? Carter froze. People were circling now, not with pitchforks, but with something stronger. Phones, eyes, questions. James picked up the medal, wiped the dust off gently with his thumb, and placed it back into his coat. He didn't look angry. He looked tired, and the crowd saw everything. For the first time, Officer Carter didn't have a smart comment. He looked around. Dozens of eyes stared back. Some are full of confusion. Others are full of quiet anger. The older man stepped closer. His voice shook, not from fear, but from something deeper. That medal isn't given out for showing up. You have to save lives to get that. I knew a man who earned one, died doing it. Carter backed up half a step. I just thought. You didn't think, the man snapped. A girl in the crowd, no older than 16, raised her phone higher. You're being streamed, she said calmly. TikTok's watching. Carter glanced at her, then at the phones surrounding him. Turn those off. You're not allowed to record officers. A woman's voice came from behind the group. Actually, we are. She stepped into view, tall and steady. A dark ponytail trailed behind her uniform. A badge gleamed at her hip. Sergeant Davis. I've been watching from inside the cafe, she said, looking right at Carter. And I think it's time we all stop and listen. For once. She turned to James. Sir, may I help you up? James looked surprised, then nodded. Davis offered her hand. He took it. The crowd watched in silence as James stood, a little shaky, but proud. Davis gently brushed off his coat and stepped aside so he could speak. James looked around. I don't need your sympathy, he said quietly. I just needed a little kindness. That's all. He turned to Carter. I wore this country's uniform to protect people, even ones like you. The air felt heavy. People shifted. A few sniffled. One woman wiped her eyes. Then, from the back of the crowd, a voice called out, James! A young woman stepped forward, tears in her eyes. You served with my dad. The photo in our hallway. You're standing right next to him. James blinked. Tommy Wexler. She nodded, smiling through her tears. He passed away last year, but he always talked about you. Said you were the reason he made it home. James didn't know what to say. Another officer walked up behind Carter. Officer Carter, he said firmly. I need to speak with you, now. Carter's mouth opened like he wanted to argue, but he didn't. He stepped away, shoulders lower, than before. Phones kept recording. But now they weren't focused on the officer. They were focused on James. And for the first time in a long time, he was being seen for who he really was. Officer Carter stood stiffly as his supervisor pulled him aside. The crowd stayed silent, watching every move. Phones still pointed in his direction. Carter, the senior officer said under his breath, You're on camera, and not in a good way. Step back and stop talking. But I didn't. I mean, I thought he was just… Carter stammered. The supervisor held up a hand. Doesn't matter what you thought. You crossed a line. We've had other complaints about you. Go wait in. The cruiser. Carter's face flushed red. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He turned and walked away slowly, each step heavier than the last. Sergeant Davis turned back to the crowd. Everyone, thank you for staying calm, she said. I'm sorry you had to witness that. What happened today doesn't reflect what we stand for. She looked at James with gentle eyes. Sir, are you all right? James gave a slow nod. I've had worse. Davis gave a small smile. Still, you didn't deserve that. A woman stepped forward from the crowd, the same one who'd been filming since the beginning. I'm a reporter, she said, holding up her press badge. Channel 6. I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Holloway, if you're willing. James hesitated. Not sure the world needs to hear from an old man with no roof. The woman smiled kindly. I think they need to hear from someone who's still standing, even after everything tried to knock him down. He looked down at the medal in his coat. Then he looked up. All right, he said quietly. I'll talk. Just then, a blue van pulled up to the curb. A woman in a jacket, with a patch that read, Veteran Outreach, hopped out. I came as soon as I saw the video, she said. We've got space at our shelter. Food, warm bed, medical care. You've earned that and more. James blinked hard and looked away, swallowing the lump in his throat. The crowd started to break up, but the whispers didn't stop. Some clapped softly. Others called out, Thank you for your service. And, We're sorry, man. For the first time in years, James felt something in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in a long while. Hope and Carter. He sat alone in the patrol car, no longer smirking. He was the one being watched now. Later that evening, the video had already been shared thousands of times. Clips of Officer Carter mocking James were all over the internet. People weren't just angry. They were heartbroken. The comments came pouring in. Disgraceful. He's a hero. How did this happen? Someone help that man. James sat quietly in the back of the Veteran Outreach van. The woman driving, Sandra, offered him a bottle of water and smiled. You've got people talking, you know, she said. And not just online. Folks are already calling the shelter. They want to help. James looked out the window. I didn't ask for any of this. Sandra nodded. You didn't. But you deserve it anyway. Back at the station, Officer Carter was placed on immediate leave. Internal Affairs opened a case. It wasn't the first complaint on his record, but this time, there was proof. The chief watched the video 3 times before shaking his head and closing his office door. In the following days, things changed. Local restaurants offered free meals to veterans. A community group started a clothing drive. A barbershop owner posted, Any vet who needs a cut, on the house. And James, he stayed a few nights at the shelter, got a shower, a haircut, and a new coat. The same reporter from Channel 6 invited him on air. He didn't talk much, just enough. Enough for people to understand what he'd been through. Enough for them to care. A local business owner, a former Marine, reached out. Come by next week, he said. We could use a steady hand in our shipping department. James smiled softly. I'm not as strong as I used to be. Doesn't matter, the man replied. You've got something better. You've got heart. Word spread that James might get a small apartment through the VA. Nothing fancy, but his own roof, his own key. Meanwhile, the people in the town had changed too. They started looking a little longer at those sitting on sidewalks. Some stopped to talk. Some offered food. A few just nodded. But that small gesture meant everything. James wasn't invisible anymore, and the badge that once stood for fear now reminded people of what not to ignore. 1 week later, the same sidewalk looked different. The weather was warmer, the sky is brighter. But it wasn't just that. Something had shifted. In front of the same cafe, a small table had been set up. On it were 3 large carafes of coffee, a tray of donuts, and a handwritten sign. Free for vets. Thank you for your service. Behind the table stood James, clean-shaven, wearing a dark hoodie under a new army green jacket. His eyes were clearer, now. He still walked with a slight limp, but he stood tall, taller than before. He handed a cup of coffee to a man with a backpack and said, "Cream's on the side. Stay warm out there." The man nodded, mumbled a thank you, and shuffled down the street. James watched him go, then smiled to himself. He knew that walk. He had lived it. Across the street, people slowed down as they recognized him. Some waved. One man gave him a respectful salute. Inside the cafe, the same young woman who had first watched everything unfold sat by the window. She looked out at James, then down at her phone. On the screen was a news article, "From Disgrace to Hero: How a Homeless Veteran Changed a City." She looked back up. James turned, and their eyes met. She gave a small nod. James nodded back. A man from the local city council approached, holding a folder. "We're working on a plaque," he said. "Downtown Park. Your name, your medal, your story. People should remember it." James didn't say anything at first. He just looked down at the coffee pot he was refilling. Then he said quietly, "I didn't do it to be remembered." "I know." The man replied, "That's why you will be." The afternoon breeze picked up. A little girl walked by with her father and pointed at James. "Daddy, is that the soldier from the video?" The father nodded. "That's him." And James. He kept pouring coffee. Quiet, humble, steady. Because some battles never end. But every once in a while, a man gets to stand on the other side of one, with his head high and his hands full of peace. If this story moved you, take a moment to like the video so more people can see it. Share your thoughts in the comments. Every voice matters. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful true stories that deserve to be heard.